At Christmas, my parents handed all the presents to my brother and said, "You didn't earn anything this year." I stayed quiet. That night, I packed my suitcase. 1 year later, as they gathered around the tree again, the TV cut to a live interview, with me sitting in the spotlight. I, 26M, watched my brother unwrap his 15th gift while I sat on the couch with empty hands, the Christmas lights blurring in my vision. Mom handed him another box, this one wrapped in expensive silver paper with a gold ribbon. Dad stood behind them both, phone out, recording every moment like he always did. My brother grinned, that same grin he'd worn since we were kids, the one that said he knew exactly what was happening and enjoyed every second of it. The living room smelled like pine and cinnamon. Our tree stood in the corner, massive and over-decorated, just like every year. Presents had been piled underneath it that morning. I'd counted them earlier when no one was looking. 23 boxes. Not a single one had my name on it. My brother tore into another gift. A new laptop. Top of the line. He already had two. I sat there in my old jeans and the sweater I'd bought myself last winter, the one with the small hole near the hem that I kept meaning to fix. My hands rested on my knees. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Mom finally looked over at me. Her expression wasn't apologetic. It wasn't even uncomfortable. She just stated that I hadn't earned anything this year, so there was nothing for me. Dad nodded along like she'd just explained something perfectly reasonable, like why the sky was blue or why water was wet. My brother didn't even glance up from his new noise-canceling headphones. I asked what she meant by that. My voice came out quieter than I'd intended. She sighed, the way she always did when she had to explain something she thought was obvious. She said I'd been difficult all year, that I'd chosen my own path instead of listening to them, that I'd refused to join Dad's company like my brother had, that I'd wasted my degree on teaching instead of pursuing something respectable. Teaching. I taught chemistry at the local high school. I had students who actually understood stoichiometry because of me. Kids who'd told me I was the reason they wanted to study science. But in this living room, in this house, that meant nothing. Dad added that my brother had proven himself. He'd stepped up, taken responsibility, embraced the family business. He'd earned their investment, their pride, their gifts. I sat there and did the math in my head. My brother worked at Dad's commercial real estate firm. He showed up late, left early, and spent most of his time taking clients to expensive lunches on the company card. I knew this because Dad complained about it to Mom when he thought I wasn't listening. But my brother had the right job, so none of that mattered. I stood up. Nobody asked where I was going. I walked upstairs to my childhood bedroom, the one I'd been staying in since I moved back after college to save money for a place of my own. My teaching salary didn't go far in this city. The room still had my old posters on the walls. Periodic table. Science puns. A signed photo from a chemistry conference I'd attended in undergrad. I looked at them all like I was seeing them for the first time. I pulled my suitcase from the closet. It was old, a hand-me-down from Dad that he'd given me when he'd upgraded his own. The handle stuck a little when I extended it. I packed methodically. Clothes. Toiletries. The few books I couldn't leave behind. My laptop. My teaching materials. The watch my grandfather had given me before he died. The only person in this family who'd ever told me he was proud of me for following my passion. Downstairs, I could hear my brother laughing. Mom said something about ordering pizza. Dad's voice rumbled in agreement. I zipped the suitcase. Took one last look around the room. Then I walked back downstairs with it rolling behind me. They were in the living room, surrounded by open boxes and wrapping paper. My brother was trying on an expensive jacket. Mom was taking photos. Dad was already on his phone, probably posting about their perfect family Christmas. I told them I was leaving. Just that. No explanation. No anger in my voice. Mom glanced up. She asked where I was going with that attitude. I said I was going anywhere else. Then I walked out the front door. The cold hit me immediately. December in the northern part of the state meant real winter, the kind that made your breath fog and your fingers go numb in minutes. I put my suitcase in my beat-up sedan, the one I'd bought used 3 years ago, and drove. I didn't have a plan. I had maybe $2,000 in savings. I had a job that wouldn't pay me again until January 15th. I had nowhere to go. I drove to my friend's apartment across town. He opened the door in sweatpants and a gaming headset around his neck. I asked if I could crash on his couch for a while. He took one look at my face and stepped aside to let me in. That night, lying on a lumpy couch in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like leftover Chinese food and old laundry, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. I wasn't going to measure my worth by their standards. I was going to prove something, not to them, but to myself. I spent the next week on that couch, applying for every opportunity one could find. Research positions, private tutoring gigs, online teaching platforms, curriculum development jobs, anything that would let me build something bigger than a single classroom. In January, I got a response from an educational technology startup. They were developing an online platform for science education and needed someone who actually understood teaching, not just content. Someone who could make complex topics accessible. The interview was over video call. I did it from my friend's bedroom while he was at work. They offered me the position. The salary was slightly less than my teaching job, but it came with equity, stock options, and a company that might go somewhere. I took it. I kept teaching part-time. Mornings at the high school, afternoons and evenings building course content for the platform. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes more. My friend eventually told me I needed to find my own place because his girlfriend was moving in. I found a studio apartment in the cheapest part of town. It had water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that clanked all night, but it was mine. My parents didn't call. Not once. My brother posted photos on social media. Him at fancy restaurants. Him on vacation in the Bahamas. Him shaking hands with clients at company events. Dad's company logo was always visible somewhere in the frame. I didn't post anything. I just worked. The platform launched in March. By May, we had 10,000 users. By August, 50,000. Teachers were reaching out, telling us how much easier we'd made their jobs. Students were sending messages about finally understanding concepts that had confused them for years. In September, a major news network did a piece on innovative education technology. They interviewed our CEO. During the segment, they showed clips of our platform. My lessons. My voice explaining chemical bonds and reaction mechanisms. My face on screen for maybe 5 seconds. I didn't know if my parents saw it. I didn't check. In October, we got acquired. A massive education company had been watching our growth. They wanted our platform, our team, our approach. The number they offered was absurd. Life-changing. My equity, my stock options, suddenly had real value. Not enough to retire, but enough to change everything. I bought a condo. Nothing extravagant, but it had good light and working heat and a kitchen where everything functioned properly. I bought a new car. I paid off my student loans. I put money aside for things I'd only dreamed about. I still didn't call my parents. In November, the network reached out again. They were doing a year-end special on young innovators in education. They wanted a full interview. Studio appearance. Primetime slot. They wanted to talk about my journey from classroom teacher to educational technology developer. About making science accessible. About the future of learning. I said yes. The interview was scheduled for December 23rd. Evening broadcast. They told me it would air live. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I didn't post about it. I just showed up at the studio in a new suit that actually fit properly, and I sat across from an interviewer under bright lights while cameras pointed at my face. She asked me about my background. I told her about teaching high school chemistry. About loving the moment when a student's face lit up with understanding. About wanting to reach more students than I could fit in one classroom. She asked me about my inspiration. I paused. Then I told her about growing up in a family that didn't value education unless it led to immediate financial success. About being told that teaching wasn't respectable. About choosing to pursue it anyway because some things mattered more than approval. She asked me about the acquisition. I explained what it meant for the platform, for education, for accessibility. I didn't mention the money. That wasn't the point. She asked me what I was doing for Christmas. I said I'd be spending it with people who supported me. People who saw value in what I was building. The interview lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the interviewer shook my hand and told me I was going to inspire a lot of people. I went home to my condo. I ordered takeout. I watched a movie. I went to bed. The next morning, my phone exploded. Text messages, voicemails, emails, former students reaching out, teachers I'd worked with, friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had seen the interview. My parents didn't call, but my brother did. I let it go to voicemail. He said we needed to talk, that the family wanted to see me for Christmas, that mom was making my favorite dinner, that they'd love to hear about everything I'd been doing. I deleted the message. Christmas Eve arrived. I spent it at my friend's place. Him and his girlfriend had invited me over. We made dinner together, laughed about bad Christmas movies, exchanged modest gifts. His girlfriend gave me a mug that said, "Science teachers do it with more energy." I actually laughed. Christmas morning, I woke up in my own place. I made coffee. I sat by my window and watched the city wake up. My phone rang. Mom. I stared at it. Let it ring. She left a voicemail. She said they'd seen the interview, that they were proud of me, that they'd always known I'd do something special, that they'd love to have me over for dinner to celebrate. That family was important, that they missed me. I played it twice, listened to every word, tried to find anything genuine in her tone. Then I deleted it. Dad called an hour later. Similar message. He wanted to talk about opportunities, about how his company could benefit from my connections, about family business synergy. The word synergy actually came out of his mouth. I deleted that one too. My brother sent a text. Just asked if I was coming over. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened last Christmas. Just an expectation that I'd show up. I turned off my phone. Later that day, I got a video call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was my old high school. Several of my former students had organized a call. They'd all gathered in the chemistry lab. They wanted to thank me, to tell me they'd seen the interview, that I'd inspired them, that because of me, 3 of them were majoring in chemistry, 2 in chemical engineering. 1 was going into science education. I sat there in my condo and talked to these kids who weren't really kids anymore. They asked me questions about the platform, about college, about following your passion even when people don't understand. One of them asked if I ever doubted myself. I was honest. I told them yes, all the time. But doubt was just fear trying to protect you from failure, and sometimes you had to fail to figure out who you really were. After the call ended, I sat in the quiet. The sun was setting. My condo filled with orange light. I thought about last Christmas, about sitting on that couch with empty hands, about the look on Mom's face when she told me I hadn't earned anything, about walking out with my suitcase. I thought about where I was now, about the work I'd built, about the students I'd reached, about the life I'd created without their approval, without their money, without their version of success. I turned my phone back on. I had 47 new messages, most from people congratulating me, some from former colleagues, a few from journalists wanting follow-up interviews, 3 more from my parents, 2 from my brother. I opened a new message, started typing. I told them I appreciated them reaching out, that I was glad they'd seen the interview, that I was doing well, but I wouldn't be joining them for Christmas, this year or any year, until they understood that worth wasn't measured in job titles or company positions or expensive gifts under a tree. It was measured in impact, in passion, in waking up every day and knowing you were doing something that mattered to someone besides yourself. I told them that last Christmas, they'd made it clear I was only valuable if I met their expectations. And I decided their expectations were irrelevant. I told them I'd built something meaningful without them, and I'd keep building, with or without their pride. I told them the door wasn't closed, but it also wasn't open just because I'd succeeded on terms they suddenly recognized. Then I sent it. I made dinner. Nothing fancy. Pasta and vegetables. I ate it while watching snow fall past my window. The city was quiet, peaceful. My phone buzzed. Dad calling. I let it ring. Then Mom. Same thing. Then my brother. He left a voicemail. Said I was being ridiculous. That they'd always supported me. That I was ungrateful. That I'd gotten lucky and shouldn't forget where I came from. I listened to the whole thing. Then I saved it. Not to replay, but as a reminder of exactly what I'd walked away from, of exactly why I'd needed to. I spent the rest of Christmas alone. Not lonely, just alone. There's a difference. The next morning, my friend called, asked how I was doing. I told him honestly, good, maybe better than good. He invited me over for leftover turkey and board games with him and his girlfriend. I went. We played games until midnight, laughed until our sides hurt. They gave me a key to their place, told me I always had somewhere to go. That meant more than any gift under any tree. The interview kept circulating. More opportunities came. Speaking engagements, consulting offers, requests to collaborate on new projects. Each one felt like validation, not from my parents, but from the world I'd chosen to be part of. My parents kept trying. Calls, texts, even a handwritten letter that showed up at my condo somehow. They'd found my address. The letter talked about misunderstandings, about how proud they'd always been, even if they hadn't shown it well, about wanting to be part of my life. I read it once, put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday they'd actually understand what they'd done. But that day wasn't today. I had work to do, students to reach, courses to build, a life to live on my own terms. And when next Christmas came around, I'd be exactly where I chose to be, not where anyone expected me to be. That was enough.